Welcome to the Volunteer Water Quality Monitoring Level 1 training. Through these trainings, we hope to provide education on Missouri's water resources, different influences on water quality, and how you all can collect data to be more informed on your local streams. Let's get started. If you would like to reference additional educational resources, you can do so by accessing our website and training materials and resources. If you go to mostreamteam.org, select the Water Quality Monitoring tab, and then select the link for training materials and resources, there are some tools you guys can use to follow along with these trainings, as well as references that you can take out to the stream for your first few monitoring trips. So, to start us out with our trainings, we'll start with an overview of the Stream Team program and the activity you all are hopefully wanting to participate in of volunteer water quality monitoring. So we'll refer to this as VWQM. We're also going to cover watersheds, what they are and how they influence our waters. We'll also talk about what water quality means to us, how we measure it, and what we know about water quality within the state of Missouri. And finally, we'll talk about how VWQM, or Volunteer Water Quality Monitoring data, is helpful and helps support our knowledge and education on our water resources. We'll start with an overview of the Missouri Stream Team program, and we'll also talk about the goals of the Volunteer Water Quality Monitoring activity. The Stream Team program began in 1988 with the first Rivers and Stream Conference held in Jefferson City. The first Stream Team was formed in 1989 on the Ruby Doo River by a group of fly fishers who were interested in stream conservation. The Stream Team program is a partnership between the Missouri Department of Conservation, Conservation Federation of Missouri, and the Department of Natural Resources. Each agency has their own role. The Conservation Federation of Missouri is an organization for citizens concerned about our natural resources and environmental issues and is a Missouri affiliate of the National Wildlife Federation. The Missouri Department of Conservation is responsible for managing the forest, fish, and wildlife resources, and they have concerns on water pollution and its effect on the aquatic life. The Department of Natural Resources is a regulatory agency in Missouri and has regulatory authority over water. The department also publishes reports on the water quality of the state and has enforcement actions or plans in place for water quality improvements. The biggest support of our program comes from citizens and volunteers within the program. We appreciate feedback on our program as well as the support and actions that all of our volunteers perform to protect our water resources. Stream Team has 3 main goals with our program. We hope to provide education, stewardship, and advocacy. We provide education through hosting different workshops. Some are recorded and you can find on the Stream Team YouTube page. We also host trainings such as this for how citizens can collect volunteer data. We have resources and materials online, and we are also available per request from any citizen, organization, teachers, anyone who's looking for a more condensed or comprehensive kind of learning lesson on water quality within the state. We can also help provide stewardship through different opportunities, resources, and supporting citizens on hands-on conservation activities within their local streams. An example of this is litter pickups. We also help to inform citizens on their water resources, and if citizens are looking to advocate for water improvements, they can do so by getting in touch with Stream Teams United. If you are interested in advocating for your resources, please visit streamteamsunited.org and you can find out more information on how you can do so. Stream Team has many resources and activities that you all can participate in. If you visit our website, you can learn more about some of these activities listed on this page. Some of the more popular activities that people participate in are litter pickups, storm drain stenciling, and tree plantings. Our program can help provide some of the resources if you are looking to do these conservation activities within your local stream. One of the most popular activities within the Stream Team program is the water quality monitoring component. This activity was actually added in 1993 per request of Stream Team volunteers who wanted to know more about their local stream conditions and do so by monitoring and collecting data on their local streams. This is the one activity within our program that requires training. This helps ensure the quality of data and also helps ensure that folks are informed on the data that they're collecting. The Volunteer Water Quality Monitoring Program also has goals that we're hoping to achieve and provide to our participants. The first is to help inform and educate folks on the conditions of Missouri streams and empower them with knowing more about their local streams within their watersheds. We also hope to establish a monitoring network, so there's a lot of stream resources throughout the state, and we're missing a lot of data or knowledge on current conditions of those streams. So volunteers can help bridge the gaps in our current knowledge of our stream resources and have a finger on if our stream resource conditions are changing. Citizens can also help use this information to make informed decisions, whether it be for their own local properties or for actions within the watershed. Citizens can also help protect their streams by being out in the streams, being aware of concerns within the streams, and collecting data to help promote the protection of the water quality. Volunteer water quality monitoring does require some trainings. Our trainings is comprised of a virtual portion and a field training portion. The virtual component is online on the Missouri Stream Team YouTube page, and it's comprised of this playlist. These chapters have relevant material for the program that will be helpful for when you are starting out. These chapters also really go into detail for what different things we're monitoring with the program, how they can be influenced, as well as why it is important that these aspects are monitored. The field training really goes over the different methods, and it also provides a practice with supervision of staff for how to collect this data. We cover all 4 data sheets in our field training component. Both the virtual and the field training component is required for you guys to be officially trained at level 1. If you are interested in the field training and it's not posted on our Missouri Stream Team website, I do recommend that you register to become a Stream Team. If you register to become a Stream Team and provide your email, we send out announcements for when those schedules are posted. We commonly hold the field trainings in the spring and the fall in different areas throughout the state. If you have any questions or special requests for where we hold these trainings, please be sure to contact staff. At the level 1 training, we give you all the tools and resources for how to monitor at your own streams. We do have higher levels of trainings that we hope you guys can attend, and these trainings can help provide a review and a quality assurance / quality control check or QAQC check of the monitoring techniques that we have taught you all. It is also good to do this, especially if your equipment has aged a little bit. It is good to check in on your equipment and that your utilizing the equipment properly. We'll also do a check of your macroinvertebrate identification skills. We'll also update you guys on any program changes. Doing this type of check is great to help refresh your skills and keep you guys up to date, but it's also helpful in that it ensures your quality of data that you have submitted. If we know that you properly know how to identify the macroinvertebrates within the stream, then we are confident that that macroinvertebrate data you submit is of good quality. So we do recommend, if you're interested in moving on and growing your skills, to attend a higher level of training and a level 2 training. These are commonly offered in the winter, and we do hope that if you get level 2 trained, you re-up your training once every 3 years, again for a good equipment check and a good conversation for what's going on at your site, as well as are there any program changes or new updated equipment. The level 2 training does have some prerequisites. We do recommend that you go out and practice your monitoring procedures and visit your site again to see if there's anything of concern that you may want to be additionally trained on at this level 2 training. At a level 3 training that is for very experienced monitors, again, who maybe have more goals on certain concerns at their site or specific aspects that they're looking to advocate for. A level 3 training is a QA/QC check at your monitoring site of all the different parameters that we teach you. So a staff will be out there to actually help and see what type of macroinvertebrates you have at your stream site specifically. Again, if you guys are interested with a concern or really interested in monitoring and getting out and looking at what's going on in your watersheds, there are cooperative stream investigations or advanced monitoring projects if it is applicable and makes sense for a concern within your local area. So if you are interested in a type of project, please talk to a trainer at one of these higher levels and ask and see if there's anything you can help with in your watershed, or ask about a specific concern you have at your site. All right, if you guys have any questions on our trainings, feel free to contact staff. But for now, we're going to segue into watersheds. So we're going to talk about what a watershed is and how it influences our stream health. So what is a watershed? A watershed is a topographically defined area of land that when it rains, that water will then drain into a particular body of water. Since water always runs downhill, the boundaries of any watershed are based on how the land is shaped or elevation. If you know the topography or elevation, you can easily see where the water will run, and it usually runs downhill. If you look at the example here, you can kind of get a visual for what we are talking about. So if you cupped your hands, and if we were to sprinkle water over your hands, the water would fill into the creases and then end up at the lowest point of your hand or where it is cupped. So that's kind of how our stream systems work. Our streams are those creases, maybe between your fingers or, in the lines of your hand. And then a lake or a larger stream or the ocean may be that larger body of water that those areas are running into. Again, when it rains, that rain will travel, and the whole entire area, which is defined by topography, is the watershed and can influence your stream system. Here's another example of what we're talking about with what a watershed is. You can see in this picture how the yellow line illustrates how a watershed can be defined by topography. You can also see that when the rain comes down, that the rainwater will flow to the lower points in elevations and into a larger body of water, like a stream, to a river, to a lake, or an ocean. You can also see how when the rain hits the land, it can run across different types of land use. For example, this urban area or potentially this agricultural area. So, when the water is running through these different types of areas, it can pick up different pollutants, and then those pollutants will eventually enter a larger body of water. This is how your watershed helps define what could be impacting the water quality to your local stream resources. Watersheds can vary in size. You can see in the back left corner, there is a mini watershed forming based on the topography. That watershed is then again running into this larger watershed influenced by multiple water resources. So, depending on where you monitor, you may have different water quality based on what's going on within your watershed. So here is an outlook on watersheds in Missouri at a big scale. Some of you guys may be familiar with some of these large waters. Let's take a dive into some of these big watersheds and talk more about how they impact the quality of our water resources. Here is a look at the Mississippi River watershed. This watershed drains roughly 1.2 million square miles of water. It covers 30 states and parts of Canada, and it's the fourth largest watershed in the world. The first is Amazon, the second is Congo, and the third is the Nile. The Mississippi discharges into the Gulf of Mexico. All of the land use within this watershed contributes to the water quality that leaves the Mississippi River into the ocean. Currently, there is a nationwide issue of a Gulf hypoxic zone in the Gulf. This hypoxic zone is an area that is depleted of oxygen and that ocean life struggles to live in. All of these states that are within the watershed should be working on changing some of its practices to help improve the quality of water that discharges into the ocean and affects ocean life. The Missouri River is a sub-watershed that contributes to the water quality within the Mississippi. The Missouri River watershed is comprised of the longest river within North America, the Missouri River. It covers 10 different states and it's draining, again, large quantities of water. Most of Missourians are familiar with this water body. More than half of Missourians get their drinking water from the Missouri or the underground aquifer that it is connected to. So it is important to protect the quality of water within this resource. Here is a state of Missouri with the Missouri River watershed in mind. You can see that this watershed covers a lot of counties within our state. The black dot pinpoints the mouth of the Missouri River, so where the Missouri River discharges into the Mississippi River. If we wanted to know what the water quality of the Missouri River was like, with the contribution of all of those 30 states in mind, this sampling spot would give us that snapshot before it discharges into the Mississippi River. Our sampling protocols aren't meant for large bodies of water such as the Missouri River. Your sampling spot may be one similar to this red dot. Although it is not specifically on the Missouri River, it is still within the Missouri River watershed. So your sampling location can still be contributing to that water quality at that black spot on this map. Watersheds again vary highly in scale. So here is an example of some major sub-watersheds to the Missouri River. You guys may be familiar with some of these rivers, such as the Gasconade, Sheraton, Grand, and Osage. You can now see that the red spot is a sampling location within the Gasconade watershed. It is super helpful to know what watershed you're sampling in. So again, this red spot may be where you're sampling, but it could be contributing to the picture of the water quality that could be seen at this black spot or the mouth of the Gasconade River. Keep in mind that watersheds can be broken down to extremely low levels, and different influences could be occurring based on what watershed and what land use is occurring in your watershed. As we zoom in to focus on a more specific watershed, you can start to see how a specific river, the Ruby Doo River, is now at the same red spot sampling point. When you zoom in to this sampling point, you can see how many different tributaries and what stretch of land is all contributing to that quality of water taken at that sampling spot. When thinking about your watershed and the bigger scales of watershed, it is important to consider that we're all in this together. Water quality is a reflection of what's going on within the watersheds, and we all live within a watershed. So when looking at your site, feel free to look at some maps and see what's going on within the local scale. See what could potentially be flowing into your site by looking at the topography, and also consider, where does your stream flow into next? What larger water body does your stream impact as well? So keep in mind that healthy watersheds make healthy streams, so good land practices will help protect our stream systems. All right, now we're going to talk about water quality. Yay! So what is water quality? When we look at good water quality versus poor water quality, we look at three main components: the physical, biological, and chemical composition of your stream. Physical characteristics may include your watershed, so what's going on near your stream that when it rains could be influencing the water quality. What's going on near your stream channel? Is it forested, or do you have parking lots or businesses nearby? Are your stream banks, are they steep, or are they kind of gently sloping? Are they eroding pretty heavily? We may also look at the composition of your stream bed. Do you have bedrock? Do you have a lot of rocks in your streams? Do you have a sandy stream? We may also be looking at the flow patterns. Is your stream constantly flowing, or in drier periods does it pool? These are all telling components and that can contribute to the water quality. Biological components are also important. We want the streams to be maintaining a natural ecosystem. This includes plant life, fish, and the macroinvertebrates within our local streams. The chemical composition of your river is also important. This could be comprised of temperature, dissolved oxygen, pH, nutrients, and suspended solids. The backbone for protecting our nation's waters truly comes from the Clean Water Act. Before the Clean Water Act, there was little regulations or protections for point source discharge. So industrial facilities and wastewater treatment plants were free to discharge their waste to our nation's waters. This severely degraded our nation's waters, so much so that certain rivers, like the Cuyahoga River, would set on fire. This brought nationwide awareness, and the Clean Water Act was passed in 1972. The goal of the Clean Water Act was to ensure water quality is fishable and swimmable. It is also meant to restore and maintain that physical, biological, and chemical composition of a stream. The structure for improving the water quality for a nation's waters is set by determining water quality standards, or kind of safe limits for protecting our surface waters. It also allowed an avenue for regulating our point source discharges into the waters of the U.S. So now we kind of set the numbers for facilities that discharge into our waters. We also have a structure for financial assistance, either for wastewater treatment facilities to upgrade or to prevent non-point source runoff through the 319 program. All right, let's talk about the Clean Water Act, its goals, and kind of the language and infrastructure that it has provided us for protecting our surface waters within the state. So, something that is assigned to streams are uses. We have presumed uses and designated uses. So, presumed uses, all streams are assumed to protect human health protection. So fish consumption, swimming, can kids wade in it? And aquatic life protection. So can fish and macros live here? There are also additional uses given to streams, such as a drinking water supply. So in Jeff City, our drinking water supply comes from the Missouri River. So that is a given use to that water body because there's an intake from the river. There's also livestock and wildlife watering, so can cows or deer drink it without getting sick or dying? Irrigation and industrial uses, as well as recreational, so can we fish in it without the risk of water splashing up in our face and making us sick? The water quality standards protect the uses given to our stream systems. Water quality standards are quantified in two ways. One is narrative criteria, and the other is specific numbers or numeric criteria. General rules some examples are no unsightly color, no oil, scum, floating debris, and no offensive odors. General rules can be harder to quantify than specific numbers, but they are again meant to be protections to our stream resources because we don't want people just dumping oil or debris into our nation's waters. The specific numbers that protect streams may be based on the designated or presumed uses within the stream. For example, certain streams need colder temperatures to protect different fish that could live within those stream resources. There's also ranges for pH, oxygen minimums so that aquatic life has enough oxygen to breathe, chemical, nutrient, and metal limits. So when we talk about water chemistry within our program, some of our safe number ranges are based on the water quality standards for protecting our waters. Missouri, how do we determine the water quality within our streams? A huge way in which we look at this is by collecting data or receiving data from multiple agencies and reviewing the data against the water quality standards. If the data illustrates that a designated use is not being met, we will list it as impaired. Impaired means that the water is contaminated by one or more pollutants. You can see on this map, the red squiggles are outlining streams that have been listed as impaired. When we're looking at the data, we will look at what the contamination is. So is there an impairment? Yes or no? If so, what is that impairment and where is it coming from? most likely. And 3, we'll look at how far is this impairment impacting the water. So how many miles are being impacted by this potential pollutant? Who or what are the contributors of water quality declines? We have 2 categories that most pollutant sources are attributed to. One is point source and the other is non-point source pollution. Point source pollution is considered pollution that comes out of a pipe. Pipe pollution oftentimes requires a permit. So the state has a way of kind of knowing what is coming out of that spot. Non-point source pollution is that runoff. So when we talked about watersheds, when it rains, that water may pick up some sediment and chemicals within the sediment, and then it may be entering the stream systems. So it could be a variety of different sources that contribute to non-point source pollution. It is hard to identify and it is also difficult to control. So we have point source pollution, which is controlled and we are aware of, and then we also have non-point source pollution, which comes from runoff and can be from a variety of different sources. Non-point source pollution often comes from land use areas that we have changed from their natural environment. So common categories for non-point source pollution can come from agricultural areas or urban areas. Both of these areas have a tendency to contribute additional sediment, fertilizers, and pesticides, as well as animal or pet waste into our stream systems. Urban areas can also impact the flow regimes of streams with a high increase of impervious surfaces near our stream systems. There are also more industrial or likely chemical cleaning products that could be happening within an urban watershed. All of these things have management practices, or you as a volunteer or citizen can maybe modify some of your practices to help reduce the amount of non-point source pollution. An easy one may be something as simple as being regular in collecting your pet waste and trying to collect it before a rain event. There may be other tactics such as letting your grass grow longer or keeping a buffer or riparian area between your property and a stream system nearby. The Clean Water Act requires all states to assess their surface water data every 2 years and report their findings in a 305B integrated report, which describes the overall status of the state's waters. Included in this report is a list of impaired waters, or waters that are contaminated by one or more pollutant, so a designated use is no longer being achieved. As you can see from the 2018 305B report, when it comes to having enough data to assess water quality, we have a lot of water to assess. So if you see here, there's 115,000 miles of stream systems, and we had enough data from multiple agencies to assess roughly 10%. All of this data must be collected using EPA-approved protocols for us to use it in an assessment. The department also does a lot of targeted monitoring, so you can see of the 10% that we had enough data to assess, roughly 50% of those waters were listed as impaired. So we have a lot of gaps in our knowledge for our water resources within the state, and this is where volunteer data or volunteers calling in concerns can help us target our monitoring. So you may be asking yourself, what are the most common reasons for Missouri streams to be listed as impaired? Here we have a pie chart outlining the most common sources or impacts to impairments. Bacteria is number one at roughly 44% of our stream systems. Bacteria is a concern for the fishable or wadeable use of our streams. Bacteria is measured by sampling for E. coli, which is found in feces, and it is an indicator of pathogen loading and a potential threat for humans getting sick. E. coli can enter our streams from leaking septic system, livestock waste, animal waste, a lot of pets, or combined sewer overflows. Metals is also a high reason for impairments within Missouri, and this comes from legacy mining and maybe some mines that closed down and haven't been remediated properly. Common metals that cause impairments are lead, zinc, cadmium, nickel, and copper. Metals can often be toxic to aquatic life within the stream. Low dissolved oxygen is also a high cause for our waters to be impaired. This means that there's not enough oxygen for the macroinvertebrate life or for fish to survive within the waters. Low dissolved oxygen impairments can also be caused by nutrient runoff, causing an algal bloom within the stream system. Bioassessments are also a cause of impairment. This is where the aquatic life sampling has shown that the aquatic life is impaired, but it is not quite clear what the reason or source of that impairment is. Mercury in fish tissue is also an issue of concern, and this means that the fish has elevated levels of mercury, and so that it's not safe for human consumption, or the human consumption needs to be highly limited. There are also chemical pollutants that can impact our water quality, such as ammonia, chloride, pH, dissolved oxygen saturation, sulfates, nitrogen, and others. There are also physical pollutants, which could be water temperature or dissolved solids, and sediment can also impact the habitat for macroinvertebrates, so that it is not suitable. These are the main causes of impairments to Missouri stream waters. So, when we look at water quality within the state, we look at A, is it impaired? And B, what could be causing that impairment within the stream system? So here are listed out the sources of impairments for waters listed on the 303D impaired streams list. You can see the biggest one is unspecified non-point source runoff. So that is likely, again, looking at that watershed and land use, and the land use may be contributing to impacts on water quality. Another large percent is attributed to unknown sources of pollutants. Mining, again, attributes to those metals. Atmospheric deposition comes from coal-burning power plants that discharge mercury into the atmosphere. When that mercury eventually enters our water systems, and then it can bioaccumulate through the fish chain and be toxic for human consumption. Hydrological modification, again, that could be changing the stream bed, ruining the habitat, increasing the sediment. Agricultural can have some pesticide runoffs. And you can see there's another chunk of point source pollutions listed, such as wastewater facilities, industrial facilities, and urban runoff. Majority of the causes for impairments come from non-point source runoff. Only 21% are coming from point source runoffs. So if we want to improve our state's waters, there will need to be focused voluntary actions, as well as community awareness and growth in what we do with our personal properties and how we can improve non-point source impacts to our streams' waters. So what happens to those streams that are listed as impaired? We want those streams to be restored and maintained to meet those physical, biological, and chemical components of a healthy stream system. How the state does this is by developing something called a total maximum daily load, which is a planning tool to help get those waters back into healthy conditions and meeting those water quality standards. So a total maximum daily load kind of acts as a nutritionist, and it may reset a diet plan so that the stream can be healthy again. Part of resetting that diet plan may look like changing the point source effluent limits. So maybe pulling back on how much of discharge of a certain pollutant. It may also have an outline for non-point source improvements within the watershed. Non-point source improvements are a voluntary measure, but this plan can show the way for some citizen watershed groups looking to implement changes within their local community. It also helps provide a foundation for funding. So if a water is listed as impaired, more funding resources are allocated to those waters if the community applies for them. So citizen-led watershed groups can apply for non-point source funding through the 319 funds to implement different management practices to help make improvements and make that water no longer impaired. When it comes to non-point source pollution entering our stream systems, sediment is kind of the king vector for how contaminants enter our waters. So sediment is eroded soil that has been picked up by likely a rain event and then deposited into our waters. Too much sediment in our waters can cause habitat degradation, and a lot of sediment is bound to chemicals that have been put on the ground or waste, different things, and it can actually carry that waste into our stream systems. So we talked a lot about different types of impairments, but it is healthy to be cognizant of how sediment oftentimes carries those contaminants into our stream systems. We've been talking a lot about what makes a stream impaired, as well as how watersheds and land use within that watershed can impact the water quality of the stream. This study kind of focuses highly on the biological or the bentho macroinvertebrate communities within our stream systems. This study shows how connected we are to potentially impacting macroinvertebrate communities. Before this study, it was thought that macroinvertebrate communities, their populations would be resilient when the construction was very little or the change in the surrounding area was little. There was thought to be some resilience within the communities. After the study was conducted, it was shown that with as little as 10% impervious change, it could impact aquatic communities up to a 33% degradation. So this has shown us that we can have big impacts on our local stream systems, and that in some urban areas we have likely already impacted the aquatic life within those streams. Here is a different study that kind of takes a look at how our biological stream communities are doing as a nation and where we still have room for improvements. So we have likely already heavily impacted a lot of our streams due to how we have developed as a nation. So, based on this study, which was updated in 2013 and 2014 by the National Rivers and Stream Assessment, roughly 44% of our streams still have poor biological conditions. Roughly 26% are fair and 30% are good. So, what this is kind of showing us is that we still have a lot of room and growth for improvements to our water resources and to making our streams better. So that is a summary of water quality, what we look at, how we report water quality, as well as some areas that we can improve in water quality within the state. Now let's take a look at volunteer water quality data uses. So, the state of Missouri has roughly 115,000 miles of stream systems. We do not have data on all of those stream systems, and some of the data we do have may be a couple of years old and maybe even older than that. So, volunteer data can really help provide a baseline conditions for streams that we currently have no data on. They can also help be more up to date than the current data we have assessing an issue on a stream. It can also be used to help inform and educate you all as to how that water quality is doing. It can also be helpful to identify specific concerns so that a state agency can follow up on these concerns and see if this stream needs more monitoring efforts. It can also help identify long-term trends. So you guys are out in your streams more than we are, so we may monitor for just a few years and then not go back into that stream until we think there's a different concern or an implemented change that would change the water quality, such as different management practices or a point source has changed its limits. But you guys can be out there longer than we can, and you can actually collect enough data if you do it for a long period of time, like over 5 years, to see if your water quality is having any changes. So is it getting better? Is it staying the same? Or is it getting worse? Volunteer data can also help supplement agency data, particularly if it is collected at a higher level, such as level 2 or level 3, and it has supervision or a project plan in place. So that's one of those cooperative stream investigations or advanced monitoring projects. Volunteer data can also help see if different management practices or best management practices are improving water quality. So we have quite a few 319 projects where they have implemented different management practices, maybe such as rain gardens or kind of building a natural area around a stream, in which they have utilized volunteers to help collect data before and after these management changes to show that these management changes are actually making improvements on our stream systems. This can be helpful again if you're a higher level trained volunteer. This is another illustration for how volunteer water quality monitoring data is useful and helps provide an additional layer of education on our water resources. This is taken from the Missouri Stream Team VWQM report of our data starting from 1993 to 2016. This can be found on Stream Teams United websites under Report. For this graph, it is graphing the water quality rating based on the biological data sheet that we teach volunteers to collect. There's a few things going on here, so I'll start by explaining the map at the top right corner. It's illustrating 3 different ecoregions within the state of Missouri. We'll talk about this more in the biological monitoring, but the top part of the state is known as the plains region. So it used to have a lot of grasslands. It is also flatter, and its streams have a tendency to have different characteristics than the southern part of the state or the Ozarks. The Ozarks tends to be heavily forested. It also has more variation in topography, and it tends to have more rocky and spring-fed streams. For this graphic image, we have compared the data of biological life from the Ozarks to the Plains region. What it's showing is that in the Ozarks region, the biological data, 41% of it was excellent, whereas in the northern part of the state, 14% was excellent. If we take a look at how many were good, they're about even. If we look at fair versus poor, you could tell that the Ozarks have less fair and poor streams, whereas the Plains region has more. What this graph could be showing us is that, in general, the Ozark streams seem to have more excellent water quality. Now, this may be in part due to natural reasons, such as the natural geological features. It could also play into how the land use has developed in the Ozarks region, such as it is more natural than the Plains region, which has been developed into a lot of agricultural lands. So this has provided another kind of level or education opportunity using the volunteer data to teach us more about water quality throughout the state. There are many areas throughout the state in which we are missing or lacking in water quality data. The volunteer program helps provide this data resource that can provide education and actually show how healthy our waters are within the state of Missouri. It can also help show any trends or changes in water quality, particularly as changes are occurring in certain watersheds. You guys, when you're out in your streams and you're collecting more information on your streams, you are more likely to locate or identify any issues, particularly if something's going on with the water chemistry or if something's changing the biological life within your stream systems. You can also help by knowing more about your streams and advocating for your streams, protect your watersheds. You can also perform education and outreach within your local community to help get more partnerships in protecting our water resources. The data that you collect as a volunteer will be made publicly available. It can be requested by any citizen, and it can also be used by your community as a source of education, as well as for folks who want to advocate for protections to their stream resources. Getting out in your stream and collecting data can also help screen for potential problems. You can contact either DNR or MDC if you have concerns on the aquatic life within your stream systems. If you continue on to a higher level and you're looking to get involved in a deeper way in the program, you may also be able to participate in a cooperative stream investigation. These investigations, the data may be used for assessments of water within the state and some of our reporting measures, such as the 305B report. There are also projects that are occurring in conservation areas or priority watersheds. If you're someone who visits these waters and interested in protecting them, we may be able to set you up for collecting stream samples in one of these priority watersheds to help protect these pristine waters. Here are some examples of volunteer monitors who have either used data to help advocate for their local resources, or when they were out visiting their stream to collect data, they found something going wrong and were able to remediate the problem. The first example is the Francis Howell Environmental Studies Group, who found a sewer line that had broken. They were able to contact their local sewer district, and that sewer district was able to immediately respond and remediate the problem. From personal experiences, if you find corn or any smelly substance within your streams that smells like sewer, it is helpful to call that concern in. Another example is the Clark family farm, who discovered the local pool had been draining into their stream systems. Pools need to dechlorinate before they dump the water into the streams. If they do not dechlorinate, the chlorination can cause an impact to the aquatic life. The Clark family discovered that there was a kill to the macroinvertebrate community within their local stream, but they were able to have a discussion with their community and this local pool and remediate the problem moving forward. They are now educated on how to properly dispose of the pool water. In the St. Louis area, there was a PhD student who utilized volunteers interested in monitoring for chlorides within the urban stream. Chlorides are commonly applied via road salts, but there are multiple methods in which communities can apply these road salts to the roads for our safety during a snow or ice period. The St. Louis study compared brining, which is mixing road salts with water during the application, to just regular road salt application to see how these different methods could be safer to impacting the water quality for local streams. So this is an example where volunteer data was used to collect and show which method could be safer, and it provided the community an opportunity to advocate for safer road salt application within their local streams. We hope that you guys become experts on your local streams that you get out to monitor. We also hope that you can share what you learn with your local community and bring appreciation to your resources. We also hope that you guys can monitor periodically to create a baseline of information for your local streams. We also hope that you guys take the time to submit this data online. If you guys have questions about the volunteer program, stream team, or anything covered within this presentation, please feel free to reach out to any stream team staff member. Here are some of our contact information.